you guys are parents, of course, and I love bringing parents on to the podcast because us as parents, we're dealing a lot. We're double parenting, as I said it before in the podcast, but we're I believe from my experiences growing up, because I'm just basing it off mine, you know, we're the best. Our generation is the best parents, but because we're dealing with things more head on, and the more head on I deal with things as a parent, the more I realize my parents and probably my grandparents were a little bit negligent in a way.
Yeah.
So we're double parenting. The times are different. Social media. How did parenting change your life? Because that's a life-changing experience.
Yeah.
Becoming a parent is the first time, you know, it's like, oh my God, this is, and I'm with my person. You see what I'm saying? How did that feel for you guys?
So I think, you know, it's one thing to be married. When you have kids and you're married, like that really changes a lot. Like, you know, for me, you know, my first thought process is, you know, my goal is to leave a legacy, right? Mm-hmm. Like I want this world to be better, you know, better because I existed. So I want my kids to live a life that I've always dreamed of having. And my parents did the best that they could possibly give. But again, I agree. I you know, they weren't the most affectionate, but just because that they were that way doesn't mean that I can't be that way. What type of marriage would they aspire to have when they get older if they don't have a good example of that in their own household, right? 100%. And you know, one of the main things is, you know, that we did, we went on dates when we were going out, and we went on dates, you know, while we're married. Yeah, we have dates with just me and her, and we have dates with the family, with all the kids. You know, Fridays is usually our dinner date night. We'll do that. We'll watch movies together. We take pictures, and you know, you take advantage of the moments. You know, like, because at the end of the day, you know, they're looking at you, and they might not admit it, but you're their role models. Yeah, they're the persons. You're the adult that they can associate with the most. So you know, it's a privilege, and it's a weight also. So sometimes when you want to act out of character, you can't act out of character. Mm-hmm. They know you one way. It's surprising if they see you do something. They know your bedtime. They know what you're eating. They know your workout schedule. Like, that's just how it is. Yeah. And you know, there's beauty in discipline also. If they see a parent that's disciplined, then chances are that they might mimic that and do that on their own. Whatever they aspire to do, they'll give their all, and that's because of the fact that their parents are, you know, leading the way. So it's a privilege. It's a heavy weight, but at the end of the day, you know, it's really rewarding when you see your kids when you know, like they don't know that you're looking, but when you're looking at them and, you know, you see the product, you say, wow, like everything really mattered. Everything really mattered.
Yeah, 100%. How do you feel when you became a first-time parent? Like, what was that experience like for you?
So I always used to tell him one of my biggest fears when I was pregnant with my daughter was that I was going to be a bad mom. Wow. And he would be like, what are you talking about? I was like, you know, I don't have, like, I had so much trauma as a child. My mom did an amazing job. She did the best she could, but there was so many things where I feel like I missed out on, or that I didn't learn, or that I didn't have that experience. And I'm like, I know that I've done a lot of self-work, but what if subconsciously a parts of me reverts to what I saw growing up? Wow. And then I do that to my daughter. Yeah. And I was just so scared of that because there's a lot of unlearning and learning that goes into it. 100%. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to, you know, trust myself. I'm going to read a lot. I'm going to do a lot of research because, you know, especially being Dominican, like they'll be like, oh, but I used to do it like this and I used to do it like that. And I would just, you know, I had to be really assertive in things and sure of myself to be like, well, that's not what I read from this research study that had 500 participants of an expert. Like, this is what I'm going to go with first. And if it doesn't work, then I'll ask you. Type of thing. And just seeing how my behaviors and my actions and the things that I do every single day reflect on my kids. Like, they're not going to do what you say. They're going to do what they see.
That's 100%.
So how you behave, how you conduct yourselves, the things that you do, and it just heightens your awareness as a person, as a woman, as a parent. And seeing my daughter, like, we have the same personality. And I'm like, if I was allowed to speak as a 5-year-old, it would probably be exactly the things that Willow says. Yes. And so I have to check myself too, because it's like, I'm reliving my childhood through her, but I'm parenting her different in a way that she's able to express herself and learn how to, like, moderate her behavior or, like, regulate herself.
It's very tough. And it's funny because as I'm trying to show up as a parent, there's a lot of my dad that comes out of me at times. And now I'm like, I'm catching it before it even comes out, because I'm coming from like, it was a different regime
Yeah.
type of style, like a different situation back then. But I'm not trying to parent you like that. First off, they're baby girls, right? I'm a girl dad, so I'm not gonna be the tough, like no, I'm gonna be the soft parent. I let her know before we even. If you give me girls, I'm gonna be a mush, and that's exactly what it is. I mean, I'm there for discipline and stuff, but I'm not that tough. Like when you said that your daughter's a little version of you, that's exactly what my wife is dealing with. She's dealing with that, and I see it now, and I just step back because I know my wife well, and I'm like, oh. As the situation happens, I'm like, yeah. And then I'm here thinking in my head, everything is playing. What would her mom do and my mom do and back then? And what are we going to do now? I'm like, is her mom going to show up at this moment, or is she going to show up with the new version? So it's like a lot of like stopping, pausing, and then reacting as parents. So there's a lot of that going on. So you're fighting yourself all the time as you're a parent.
Oh, and add on to that, I remember her being so concerned, am I going to be a good mom or not or whatever. Yeah. And like, one thing I always kept in mind is that, regardless of what's going on, it doesn't need to be Mother's Day. You can literally say, you're doing a great job as a mom. That's it. Keep it going. Because as parents, you never feel like you're doing enough. As high achievers, you never feel like you're doing enough, right? Mm-hmm. So it's important to have that recognition. Recognition can have you run through a brick wall. Yeah. And it's not like you don't necessarily need to get flowers all the time, and every once in a while it is cute, it's nice. Yeah. But in terms of words, how you make somebody feel, they'll never forget that. So, it takes 2 seconds to send a sentence that you deeply feel and say, hey, you're doing a great job, especially on those days that they're stressed and they're doing all this, and you can't physically be there because, I work a lot. I work a lot of hours. So it's important for, although I have something in front of me, my most important title is husband and dad. Yeah. You know what I mean?
100%.
So I think that's important.
100%. It's important. And, you mentioned that, giving flowers on a random day is a beautiful thing. Like I have this thing ever since they were little, since they probably didn't even recognize that this was happening. Like every time I would get their mom flowers, I would get them flowers. So I'll get her flowers and they'll receive the little flowers. And there hasn't been a time where I haven't done that, right, babe? There hasn't been a time because I'm used to. Now the other side of that is in this house is my niece. I have nothing but nieces from my wife's side. And then I have 2 daughters. So it's nothing but little girls. So now when I come with the flowers, I'm coming to everybody with flowers. So
flowers are expensive, brother.
Man, when it hits Valentine's, I'm like, man, what am I going to do? It's like $500 on flowers. Where am I going to go get these flowers? But it doesn't matter what it is.
Right.
On those days specifically, but it's also important to do that on a random day. Right. Mm-hmm. That random text, hey, I'm here for you if you need me. I love you. You're doing a great job, Mom. And it's very important. And, we have different, what I would like to say, we have different roles in parenting. But as long as I've come to know, as long as I definitely give her words of affirmations and all that throughout the day or whatever, it's not for nothing for me. It's just because that's what it needs to be. Right. To keep the peace and the love in the family. And, at the end of the day, we'll kind of like bounce off each other what happened and we'll digress at that moment. So it's important to do that. And that's one thing that I didn't see from my father. I never saw the flowers. So again, no shade to my dad. I love him, but I never got to see that. I got to see that in the movies and in those beautiful movies that people fall in love in and everything. Right. But there were things that there's a lot of things from my dad that I will pick up and I say, yeah, these points are good. And there's a couple of things that I'm adding on to it because my daughters need a different experience. They need a different upbringing. Right. Mm-hmm. And now I'm the best uncle. I'm the best father and all that in the house. So that's the reward for me. Like my kids are everything to me. And I'm super happy to be a girl dad. As a matter of fact, if there's a 3rd baby on the way, I want it to be a girl. I'm just putting it out there. Why not? I'm feeling it. Why not? Just throwing it out there. They always, grandparents always say, yeah, bring the boy. I'm like, you know what? I might bring you another girl. You never know. I'm a girl dad right
Kobe
now.
had 3 girls, right?
Yeah, exactly. But as parents, we do feel exhausted all the time, right? And that's definitely, 7 days a week, 24/7, we're exhausted as parents. Even if you are a stay-at-home parent or a working parent, parenting never stops. How do you make sure your kids feel supported even though you're exhausted?